So before you start this off, I want to bring up that I'd heard somewhere that the Sonic movie, before they got the new design, the new fresh redesign for Sonic in the movie, they made a lot of toys with the original design. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, I really gotta get some of those. At least one toy with the original design, because I'm sure that's gonna be a pretty big item in the future. So I went ahead and went on Amazon, and I don't know if there you go. On the tag, it shows the redesign, but it's pretty obvious just by looking at like the eyes and the color of the white on his stomach, and then the way his hands look.
And also his legs.
Yeah, his legs too. You can just tell it is the original design. But yeah, I just had to get it once I heard about it. Hey guys, thank you for clicking on this video. We're gonna do something a little bit different than just a review over one movie, because me and Brittany have watched 3 movies last month, and we haven't done a review for any of them because we've been busy. Me and Marquez have been busy with our best of the decade videos, and those take up a lot of time, especially with Marquez only being here once a week. So it gets kind of hard to do movie reviews as well. But since we saw these 3 movies, we're going to go and talk about all 3 of them in this video. We're going to try to briefly talk about each one. They're not going to be like full reviews. We're just going to try to talk about them pretty quickly. And the first one we're going to talk about is Sonic the Hedgehog. Is it called Sonic the Hedgehog? Sonic the movie? The new Sonic movie, which is a pretty infamous movie because, like I said in the intro, they had an original design that was in the trailer, the first trailer for the movie, and it looked god-awful.
And it was the first time a studio actually listened to its audience and the initial reaction.
Exactly. So it is originally supposed to come out November 8th, 2019, which is funny because my best friend was a really big Sonic fan when we were kids, and that's his birthday. So it would have been funny if it came out on his birthday. But they decided to change the design because it had such a negative reaction on the internet by everybody. So then it came out on February something, beginning of February.
And not to mention, they took a big risk because the reanimation cost about $4 million just in itself.
Yeah, and then didn't that company go out of business here recently?
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I don't know if it was because of that, but it's pretty kind of depressing that they actually went through all that hard work and they lost all their jobs. Yeah. But anyways, the new design, actually, in my opinion, I tried to picture this movie while I was watching it with the original design, and I honestly can't see it working as well as it did with the new one.
It would have taken away from the story. And not that the story's great, but it would have taken away, the quirkiness of it. You would have missed all of that because you're just so distracted by the old design. Ben Schwartz, who voices Sonic in this movie, did great. James Marsden did pretty great. All the actors did pretty great for what they were given. But I really feel like Jim Carrey was the standout for this movie. He was honestly by far my favorite part of the movie, other than Sonic. Sonic was pretty up there too, obviously. But Jim Carrey definitely was my favorite part. Yes, and if you're worried about Jim Carrey, because I know he's been kind of crazy these last few years.
Off screen.
Yeah. But he really goes back to the 90s Jim Carrey, just acting all crazy, almost like that Ace Ventura Liar Liar type acting.
He had a perfect level of over the top, but not too over the top.
Exactly, especially if you know the villain that he's playing. Yeah. It's an over the top character. That's who in the video game. I didn't play it that often, but I know just from a little bit of watching you play, he's just an over the top character. So Jim Carrey was the perfect fit for it.
Yeah, bringing up the video game, it's actually kind of weird because I didn't realize how much I played that game when I was a kid until watching this movie, because a lot of this movie actually made me feel really nostalgic for the game. I did remember whenever I would go to the orthodontist when I was a kid, whenever you would be waiting, he had a video game set up, and Sonic was always the game he had set up. But I didn't realize just how much I remembered just subconsciously. And I think even one of the American Sonic games, actually the one I played a lot, was actually set in San Francisco, which a lot of this movie was set in San Francisco.
Yeah, and I feel with a lot of these movies, it's animated video game type movies that are geared more towards kids, you can find a lot of plot holes, especially in this movie, if you really dig into it. But it's an enjoyable movie. We saw it with kids and adults, and everybody was laughing.
I will say, though, that it does get pretty cliche in a lot of moments.
Yes.
It's a pretty cliche movie. I'm not going to try and act like this movie's like invent something new.
Right.
I'm not going to try to say like it was like the greatest kids movie I've ever seen. But it was a pretty harmless movie. There's also like a really funny, like, you brought up plot holes, but like James Marsden's character is revealed to be like a fugitive, like on national TV.
Yeah.
And it's literally never brought up again until the end of the movie. So just stuff like that. We're gonna say that Sonic the Hedgehog is 75% awesome. The next movie we're gonna talk about is The Invisible Man, which is actually the most recent one that's come out. I think it came out like a week ago.
Yeah.
But it's the latest movie by Leigh Whannell, which I don't really know why Leigh Whannell isn't more known than he is. Because most people I've heard talk about Invisible Man say it's like, oh, it's done by the guy who did Upgrade. But like he's been around for longer than Upgrade. I mean, I haven't seen Upgrade. I've heard it's a great movie, but
because he co-wrote Saw.
Yeah, he made the very first Saw movie with James Wan. Mm-hmm. He acted in it too. He's one of the two main guys. Mm-hmm. So he did those. He wrote all the Insidious movies. He directed a few. He directed the last two, which I know the last two were kind of the lesser ones. But he wrote all of them. Yeah. And then he wrote Upgrade, obviously. But yeah, so I don't know why he's not more known. But anyways, he's a pretty good writer. And he does great with this movie too.
Yes.
This is actually gonna, I know, was it Universal or who was it trying to do the dark universe?
Yeah, it was Universal.
Yeah, trying to do the dark universe with their monster movies like Frankenstein, Dracula, Invisible Man, all those.
And it was supposed to start with The Mummy.
Yeah,
with Tom Cruise. And it did awful in the box office. So Universal kind of
critically.
Yeah, and so Universal scrapped that idea. But they still have the rights to all these movies. So what I've heard is that they're giving more creative freedom to writers to do what they want rather than create a universe and then maybe through that they could.
It would be cool if, which I mean, I do like this idea of like doing individual ones, but it would be cool if they came together several years in the future and do like a Van Helsing movie or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, just for this movie specifically, it was a good start.
Yes.
It didn't have anything to do with the Mummy.
Yes.
It is its own thing. But what I really loved about this movie was that they really delved into the psychological aspect.
Yes.
It wasn't, which that's another thing. The trailers were pretty awfully made, in my opinion.
Yes.
Because they honestly made this movie look like a cheap, like forgettable horror movie, which is the reason why I wasn't too interested in seeing it.
And I really like Elizabeth Moss. I watch Handmaid's Tale. I really like her in that. She was good in Us for the few scenes that she was in. So I was really hoping that this one was going to be good. But like you said, the trailers made it seem like it was going to be like kind of like a jump scare kind of horror movie. And I like that it was more psychological. Like there is jump scares. Mm-hmm. It's still a horror movie, so you're gonna have your typical jump scares. But they weren't jump scares to have jump scares. It's a tense situation, and when you're placed in a tense situation, you're gonna make your own jump scares.
And they do a pretty good job with the camera work because they have a lot of fun with just the idea of there being an invisible man in this movie. Mm-hmm. And so like there's some shots where like the camera would pan over, like they're about to pan to a character, but then there'd be nothing there, which obviously we know that somebody's there, but it's just little tricks like that. Then there's
made the movie more creepy.
Yeah, exactly, and just unnerving, unsettling kind of. And there's another scene towards the end of the movie. The camera's on the camera's on Elizabeth Moss. The camera's on Elizabeth Moss. Why can't I say that? The camera's on Elizabeth. I'm never naming my kid Elizabeth. Won't be able to say her name. The camera's on Elizabeth Moss, and like she's in focus, obviously, because she's in the foreground. But then like the camera goes out of focus on her, and it goes into focus on the background. Yeah. Like there's somebody beyond there, but there's nobody there. I do
wish in the trailer that they didn't show that the Invisible Man was more than likely her husband. Because I would have liked that kind of aspect of, is she really crazy? Could this be real? Yeah. And But, you know, it didn't ruin the movie.
I'm glad that, I think you were talking about, I think there's one shot that they cut out from the movie that was in the trailers where, like, she was telling her friend, like, there's somebody sitting in that chair right there.
Yeah.
And, like, they would, like, show the chair, and you can obviously see that somebody's sitting there because there's, like, imprints on the cushions.
Yes.
He's sitting in that chair.
Like, why at that point would nobody believe her?
Yeah.
So I'm glad in the movie they kept it more psychological. Like, you know, the things that she was experiencing, you know, because no sane person would believe that.
One of my only really, like, kind of big flaws is towards the end, there's a twist ending, which I know that they had to have more to the ending to, like, have closure with a lot of the characters and everything that happened. But I feel like once the first twist happens, then they try to, like, go on to the next twist, like, pretty immediately, and just, like, overall it felt like really convoluted towards the end, even though I really loved the ending scene, even though it kind of brings up some questions on how they did a few things. I did like the ending. It just got convoluted to get there after the first twist happened. I'm gonna say that The Invisible Man is 85% awesome.
And I'm going to say Invisible Man is 89% awesome.
And our last movie is going to be The Lodge. This is actually the movie we saw first out of these three movies.
We actually got an early screening for this movie where it was a live Q&A. We weren't there, but it was streamed.
Yeah.
So we got to see the Q&A. Well, they introduced themselves at the beginning, and then at the end was a Q&A.
Yeah, with the two directors and a few of the stars of the movie.
Yeah.
This movie is by the same directors as Goodnight Mommy, which I didn't see, but I've heard, like, kind of mixed reactions on it. I heard it was a decent movie.
It was also one of those movies that was very mismarketed. The trailers made it seem like it was going to be one movie, and then when you watched it, it was a completely different movie. So that disappointed a lot of fans that went in thinking they were going to get like this kind of like, is this mommy?
Yeah,
but
it was like almost a completely different movie.
Yes.
I said I haven't seen it. Marquez has seen it, and he kind of explained what happens, but it sounded like a completely different movie, like story-wise and everything. But this movie, The Lodge, was a pretty good movie, I feel like, for the first, like, 3/4. There's a huge twist ending at the end of this movie, and I feel like it really undermines a lot of the build-up they had throughout the first 3/4. Because the first 3/4, it's like a really interesting story. There's some clever sequences that I actually really loved, but then, like, the ending, like I said, like, it kind of takes away from a lot of the creepy stuff that they built up, and it kind of brings up kind of plot hole kind of questions on how a lot of this stuff happened.
Right. And we actually found out before we saw the movie that this movie filmed before Hereditary, but before it was able to finish filming and be released, Hereditary came out. So there's a lot of similarities to Hereditary. You know, not story-wise, but there is a dollhouse. One
of the characters has a family member who was in a cult and is now dead. Yeah. There's stuff that has to do with, like, dollhouses. Just overall, it kind of, I can see where comparisons to Hereditary can be made, this movie, but it's different enough for me to not really think that was a copy of it.
Right.
Yeah, so overall, I do think this was a well-made horror movie, at least, even though I didn't like the ending. The first 3/4 showed me that these directors are actually really good at filmmaking, so I am still really excited to see what they do next.
Right.
I just feel like the ending of this one could have been better.
I know that you didn't like the ending as much, but it still ruined a lot, but it didn't affect me as badly as I think it did for you.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, it didn't come, like, completely out of nowhere, so, like, it fit into the movie. Like, it makes sense. It even, like, tied into a lot of the character stuff that they did. I just feel like it took away from a lot of the things they did in the build-up.
There's a lot of times during it, I was thinking, could this be it? Or then I was thinking, no, they wouldn't do that, you know? So I was going back and forth. So it's not a twist that completely comes out of left field and you're like, why did they choose that ending? So, but like you said, it does change some of the things. You know, how did characters do certain things to get to that? Right. So that's where it kind of falls flat, the ending for me.
We're going to say that The Lodge is 70% awesome. Well, guys, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and go ahead and comment below and let us know what you thought of these 3 movies, and go ahead and tell us what your favorite of these 3 were.
Also, don't forget to follow us on social media. We have a Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at 2 Awesome Men.
And like always, thank you so much for watching, and you will see us later.